You're listening to Project Management Paradise, the ultimate project management podcast.
Hello again and welcome to Project Management Paradise. Johnny Byrne here, and this podcast delivers real project management insights from experts around the world. Our proud sponsor today is Cora Systems. Cora Systems is a leading enterprise portfolio, program and project management solution provider. If you want to find out more about Cora Solutions, which are live in 42 countries around the world, visit corasystems.com, where you can request a free demo and discover firsthand how Cora helps its clients gain control, governance and insight into their project portfolios. This week's topic for discussion is entitled Why PMP with Joel Golfrab from the Project Management Training Company based in Las Vegas. Joel has over 30 years experience in project management training and shares with us his knowledge on PMP certification, how it compares with other certifications, the scoring process, preparation options and lots more. Hello Joel and welcome to the podcast.
Hi Johnny, thanks for having me here.
You're all the way over in Las Vegas?
I am.
Well, I say that relative to Ireland, of course. That's where I am. I guess you're having pretty hot weather right now.
Yeah, it could be cooler. It's still in the hundreds. I don't spend a lot of time outside this time of year, so it's not really, everything's air conditioned, so we're good.
Great. And can you tell our listeners a little bit about your background and what you do?
Okay, well, I do project management training and I also do consulting. And I've been in consulting for 20 years. I've also had some other businesses on the side along the way. I got into training probably 20 years ago because I was asked at one of the companies I was working for to take this corporate accounting group that no longer was part of the corporate accounting to teach them how to do projects. And at that time, I honestly didn't really have a methodology. I just had some best practices that I had learned how to do in the past. So I actually still stay in touch with some of these people from that time, and they talk about how useful it was. So it stuck with me, and I liked training in general.
And PMP certification then would be one of your core offerings as a training company?
Yes. PMP became, just to give you a snippet of the background, so the PMI was founded, I think, in around 1969, and the first PMP certification was 1984. So we're talking about something that's a little over 30 years old now, but it really ramped up in the last 10 years. A lot of employers never even heard of this certification, to be frank. So there seems to be a growing market. A PMI does not release a lot of information other than to say that there's about 725,000 PMPs in the world right now. It seems like there's about 5,000 people worldwide getting certified a month, which means maybe there's 7,000 people taking the test every month. I don't know. They don't tell us what the overall pass rate is on the first time. So I see the 5,000 people as an opportunity because I certainly can't train 5,000 people a month. There's a number of other training companies like myself out there, and we all have different ways of doing things, perhaps. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure people have a solid foundation in project management and can get the exam once pass it.
Sure. And you have a presentation then, an ebook guide PDF document that I had a look through, and basically the title of it is Why PMP. So just for our listeners, those who are considering or getting familiar with it, why PMP?
Why PMP maybe is the question for me. I put the presentation together because I often get people coming to me and saying, is this something I should do? And I want to be fair about it. It'd be very easy to say, yeah, absolutely. You need to sign up and, get this exam done, and you're probably going to get a big raise at work, or you're going to find a better job. But that's not fair. People have to love project management, first of all. It's either something I believe that's in your blood or not, or else it's got to be a horrible career for somebody. But there's other project management certifications out there. If you're in IT, there's been a movement for probably just as long as the PMP has been well known, advocating what's called agile methodology or frameworks. There's Scrum, Kanban, extreme programming. There's other ways of doing things out there than what the PMP tells you to do. So I put the presentation together because I really wanted to kind of walk people through that question. I'm happy to talk to people one-on-one, but sometimes it's just easier to send people a document that they can peruse. And that document's will be a organic document. As I get more information, I'll update it and wordsmith it as I have better ways of expressing points and more research and such.
So to delve a little bit deeper then, I know there's the different ones. So I guess back to the question then, why should people consider it?
There are other fields where people get credentials, which tells not just an employer or clients that, hey, I've got a certain level of experience and, years of experience, and also the quality of my experience suggests that I have credibility in this field, that I know more maybe than somebody who doesn't have this credential. And also, if you're going to get a PMP, you're kind of becoming part of a world of 700,000 other people who share a common vocabulary with you. So for a field that doesn't have a whole lot of standards historically, it's very useful to have a good way to communicate with other people and also to kind of spread the gospel, so to speak. Certain terminology is debated all the time, even amongst PMPs, words like deliverables, like when does a customer think something is done, D-O-N-E? It's such a basic word, we use it all the time, and yet it lends itself to controversy. So I believe that you need to have these certifications because it helps create a level playing field, if you will. It's certainly not the conclusion of somebody's credibility. There's ongoing continuing education requirements. You have to have, on average, about 20 hours of professional education a year, which is similar to other fields like accounting, CPAs for accounting, or other types of fields like that. And I just think it gives a buyer, whether it's an employer or a customer, it gives them a sense of comfort because, hey, you're the expert. It helps to open up doors, obviously. Yeah.
And is it the more preferred choice or the more popular choice by employers versus the other certifications, would you say?
That I don't have a whole lot of statistical information on. I would say that if you're specifically in the IT world, it may not be as important. There's other certifications that the IT world looks more at the agile methods. As far as other kinds of corporate people and small businesses, I think it's definitely gaining speed. People who are not project managers who are in hiring positions are really, I think we've hit critical mass in terms of people saying, oh yeah, I want a PMP on my staff. Or you get a department of people where there's a lot of project managers and they have one or two PMPs and they say, well, let's get everybody else certified here. So let's bring in a coach or a trainer and let's get these people ready to take the exam.
And objectively then, from those who have developed the certification, would they argue that it does apply to Agile and the other certifications, or what do they say about it?
Very good question. As it happens, so PMI has a Congress twice a year, and I was in Barcelona in May for theirs, and they gave us a sneak preview at the new doctrine, which is called the PMBOK, which stands for the Project Management Body of Knowledge. So currently we're working off the 5th edition, which is the basis for most test questions you'll see on the PMP exam. There's a 6th edition coming, and the reason I mention this is because the person giving us the sneak preview told us that there's going to be a lot more Agile concepts. So Agile is a different way of doing things. And it wasn't, I think the references to Agile, I went and did a search through the PMP one time, and I think it was less than 10 references in a 600-page document. So we're expecting a lot more change. And just to give our listeners a quick overview, so Agile is another umbrella of a series of different project management methodologies. And it's a way of not doing so much planning on the front end, but doing a lot more things. Maybe some people will call it trial and error, but you basically highly prioritize what your customer wants to do, and you back burner everything else. And then you do these cycles called sprints every 2 weeks or 4 weeks, and you review what you've done, and you keep everybody on the project team busy. So people don't always do exactly what they were hired to do. They're doing things where we need your help at the moment within the project team, which is very different than a PMP approach, which is a lot more front-end planning. It isn't really agile in spirit. And it's changes in a PMP methodology on a project are more cumbersome. There's a whole process to get a change through, which changes are inevitable. If everybody knew exactly how something was supposed to play out, you'd have it right the first time. But there seems to be this, it's a sticky point, in my opinion, about how you make changes while you're doing a project. In Agile, changes are part of the play. It's just something that happens all the time. And
would you say that a PMP purist, if you like, that kind of Agile would almost make them cringe to the point, where it's like, this really goes against everything we believe in,
The metaphor I've used, and I'm not always politically correct, but it's almost like religion. So there may be agreement on what you want to get at the end of the line, but how you get there may be very different depending upon which camp you come from.
Sure.
And interestingly enough, I am not, well, you might call me the product of an intermarriage, so to speak, because I do have a Scrum certification as well, and I also have studied through Stanford University, which has a lot of other things to say about a lot of the things that you learn through getting your PMP. I'm an equal opportunity when it comes to what's the best way of getting a project done.
And if somebody was thinking about a career in project management, they'd say, I'd be good at that. I've been told I'm a good project manager, even though I have no formal qualifications in it. Not me personally, but just
sure.
As an example. There's a friend of mine in Boston, and we were talking about it, and his partner's in project management, and I was throwing it out there. Well, maybe you should consider it because you've been in real estate and you've done a lot of different things that are very close to project management. Would PMP be the certification he should go for because that's the field he's in, or he might even get into, he's also in the music business and he could project manage, like tours for significant bands and stuff, rather than some of the others that are like Agile, which is specific for IT, that PMP would be the way he would go?
Well, maybe. It's hard to give a definitive answer on something like that.
Sure.
Because you do have to have, in order to get the PMP certification, you've got to have the equivalent of like 4,500 hands-on project management leadership role on projects.
I guess what I'm saying is there more career opportunities with PMP than there is with some of the others, because it's not as specific as Agile is to IT.
Right. Well, Agile, and I should say that Agile has moved into non-IT areas.
Of course.
Very heavily.
Sure. That's fair. Yeah.
PMP is probably, it seems to be the most popular, if you will, of all the different certifications out there.
And what's the certification process?
And for the details, you can go to the PMI.org website. So if you have a college degree, a 4-year bachelor's degree, your requirements are to have 4,500 hours of hands-on project management. You don't have to have a project management title in your job, but you have to be able to document what those projects were and how you provided, how you were the leader of those projects. You also have to have what they call 35 contact hours. So of training, formal training. So usually when you take a PMP boot camp, such as what I offer, you're going to meet those 35 hours when you fill out your application. I don't believe on the application they ask you anymore like who your training company was, but everything that you file is subject to audit. And of course there's fees. So the way it's structured is if you become a member of PMI, which you don't have to be a PMP to be a member of PMI, you pay a little over $400 US to take the exam. And if you are not a member, you pay about $500 something. So basically, it makes more sense just to join the organization so you get the lower priced exam. And so it's pretty much filling out the application, which is subject to audit, the experience, the experience requirement and the educational requirements. You also, if you have the equivalent of just a high school diploma, you can still apply. You have to have 7,500 hours. I don't know what the breakdown is. Again, PMI doesn't seem to publish these things, but I would imagine it's a very small percentage of non-college graduates who have PMP certifications. But it's good to know that if you didn't get a college, you can actually get a certification that can be very worthwhile career-wise.
And in terms of scoring, then, you say in your guide that scoring is a closely guarded secret. Can you explain a little bit more about that, please?
So they use a process called psychometric analysis for scoring the exam, which there's 200 questions. They tell you before you go to the exam that there's 25 non-scored questions. These are questions that are, I guess they're trying to figure out how well do people answer these. So these questions that they're going to use in the future. So you go to a testing center. It's a computer-driven exam. It's multiple choice. And there's 200 questions. And of those 200, 175 are scored. But they don't all hold equal weight. And you and a person sitting next to you in the testing center will get 200 questions from a data bank of probably, tens of thousands of questions. And they're in 5, there's knowledge areas and there's process areas, which I can talk to you about a little bit later. But they give you a variety of questions in all these different domains, if you will. And depending upon how they judge a question, they say this is a difficult question or this isn't, there's a weighting to it. So there's a very complex algorithm that goes into the scoring. So you could find out you passed the exam, and you will find out immediately at the end. They make you take a short survey, and then you get your score. It just tells you passed or you didn't pass. And they give you a subjective determination of how well you did in 5 different process areas. They tell you you're either proficient, moderately proficient, or below proficient. Now, I found a colleague of mine who did some analysis surveying people who've taken their exam to find out which areas they got proficients and below proficients and so on. And because we're trying to figure out, well, how many below proficients could you get and still pass the exam? And it depends because the different process areas are not weighted equally either. So this is not very helpful to your listeners, I realize, and it can be very concerning. Some people think it's very unfair that you don't know how well you have to do to pass the exam. So the rule of thumb is you want to take, there's many websites out there that have exam simulators. Some are included with your boot camp, some are included, some are free actually. And you want to take that exam. I usually recommend people do the exam a minimum of 3 times. You do it just like you were in a testing center. You make sure you're in a room all by yourself. You take it seriously. Don't have distractions. And you will get it'll tell you at the end what your actual score is. And this is on a simulator. So you want to probably see that you get at least 80% and try to improve each time you take it. I think it's the improvement that really makes you feel confident. So if the first time you take it on a simulator and you get a 70%, and the next time you get a 75 and then an 80, you're probably going to be in good shape. We follow up, with our students to see whether they passed or not, because we don't get contacted by PMI or anybody. And we believe most people are honest when they tell you whether they passed or not. If they didn't pass, they may be coming back for a retake of your course also. So in terms of going back to the core question you asked about the scoring, there is no straightforward answer. And you also don't find out what questions you didn't get right. They just don't tell you these things. It can be very psychologically daunting to some people. So learning how to take the test is as important as what the content of what the test is.
And in terms of preparation then, studying, training, you cover a number of options there in your guide. You've study group, self-study, boot camp. Can you just briefly give us an overview of the different options and in a little bit more detail which one people should choose? Well, not which one they should choose.
Right. It's not one size fits all by any means.
Yeah, but the differences, I guess, between them.
Well, people are going to probably make decisions off the bat based upon how much time they have and how much money they could spend right now. Now, some people might question whether or not it makes sense to be paying I've seen boot camps cost as much as $3,500. And other ones maybe $800. So they don't call them boot camps. It might be some places do like 6 consecutive Saturdays. And that might not work for some people. Some people might feel like, well, I want to get this over and done with. And, that's a month and a half. I'm just dragging it out. And then I'm probably not taking the test for a few more weeks after that. Some training programs will tell you, sign up for a boot camp that runs Monday through Thursday. And then on Friday, you can take the exam. Of course, you have to have already gotten, your test date cleared with the testing center well before that in order to make that timeline work. I'm of the opinion that you have to do the thing that you're most confident doing. So self-study is probably not the right thing for most people, even though there may be just as good a success rate. But you might end up studying for a lot of things that just aren't really all that necessary, because training program companies tend to know where the questions are going to be, which topics. You're definitely going to see questions on certain things. Whereas if you're just doing it on your own, you're going to think everything in that PMBOK guide is of equal importance, and you would have no way of knowing otherwise. So we can actually shed some light on that. We can tell you that, and we do this based on collecting information after people take exams. We say, well, how many questions were there on, say, risk management, or how many math problems were there, or how many questions on, resource management, and so on. So if you did a self-study, you might be spending a lot of time working on things that you don't need to be working on so much. Not that everything isn't useful somehow, but for the exam, it might not be that important. Now, of course, you can do self-study. There's a lot of kits that you can order for probably a couple $100 where they send you flashcards and such. There's a lot of stuff on the web. YouTube has videos. Lynda.com has videos. There's a lot of videos out there. And I actually have encouraged people, even if they take the class, that sometimes if they don't get a certain concept, just go search for a video on this, because if you're not getting it, maybe somebody else can explain it to you in a way that'll click. Hopefully we, don't fall short as instructors so much, but there's just a lot of other ways to do it. So some of the other things, there are economy training programs out there. You can do a search on PMP at the name of your city and the word training or certification, and you will find pages and pages and pages of people. You get everybody from the PMP who is between jobs wanting to do training classes to people who have done this for years. Some people have more experience training, and some people are very good project managers who know a lot, but maybe they're not as good at training. So you really have to do your homework. Usually, I think the biggest thing is people will ask a colleague where did you take your class? Who taught you? And would you use them again?
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, it's been really, really useful insights into the whole process and the background around it and how it compares. If people want to find more information about you and your company, Joel, where would you recommend they go?
Well, my website, management training, in a Google search and putting my name, Joel Goldfarb. I do put my events up on our Facebook page, and I also, I use a lot of social media to promote our classes as well.
Well, look, it's been a pleasure having you on the podcast show, Joel. Very, very useful information, as I said, and we'll include it all in the show notes. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And that was our recent interview with Joel Goldfarb from the Project Management Training Company. You will find a link to Joel's website and his free PMP certification guide in the show notes at projectmanagementparadise.com/11. We'd also love an honest review on iTunes and welcome feedback about this podcast at the same link. That's projectmanagementparadise.com/11. Our proud sponsor today is Cora Systems. Cora Systems is a leading enterprise portfolio, program and project management solution provider. If you want to find out more about Cora Solutions, which are live in 42 countries around the world, visit corasystems.com, where you can request a free demo and discover firsthand how Cora helps its clients gain control, governance and insight into their project portfolios. Thanks again for listening, and be sure to tune in again next week for another great guest.
Thanks for listening to the Project Management Paradise podcast at projectmanagementparadise.com.